What if the most powerful empire on Earth was once almost undone by a lie so small that history tried to forget it? What if the truth survived not in monuments or textbooks, but in letters burned, diaries buried, and the quiet guilt of people who lived long enough to regret their silence? This is not a legend. This is not a myth. This is a true historical story, astonishing, documented, and real, about America before it became America, about power before it learned to hide itself well, and about ordinary people who accidentally stood at the center of events that reshaped the world. In the winter of 1777, the air in Valley Forge was so cold that even hope seemed to freeze before it could reach a man's lips. Snow buried the camps in uneven mounds, and soldiers of the Continental Army wrapped their feet in rags because leather shoes had long since disintegrated. Hunger hollowed their faces. Disease stalked the tents like a silent predator. Men died not from British bullets, but from frostbite, typhus, and despair. General George Washington walked among them, tall, silent, watching an army on the edge of collapse. What history books often forget to say is this: the American Revolution was losing, badly. Morale was shattered, desertion was common, Congress argued endlessly and funded almost nothing. France had not yet openly committed support. British intelligence believed the rebellion would end within months, and they were almost right. What saved the revolution did not come from a battlefield victory or a heroic speech. It came from a chain of events so improbable, so morally tangled, that even today it makes historians uncomfortable. It began with a letter that was never meant to survive. The letter was written in invisible ink. Not the romantic kind invented later for spy novels, but a real 18th century chemical mixture made from gall nuts and iron salts. To the naked eye, the paper appeared blank, useless, meaningless. But when brushed with heat or a special solution, words bloomed into view like ghosts. The author was a British officer named Major John Andre, a brilliant, cultured man admired even by his enemies. He was young, artistic, and deeply loyal to the crown. More importantly, he was in charge of British intelligence in North America. Andre believed he had found the key to ending the rebellion in one decisive stroke. That key was an American hero. Benedict Arnold had once been celebrated as one of the Revolution's fiercest generals. He fought with reckless courage at Saratoga and was instrumental in one of the war's most important victories. His body bore scars that testified to his sacrifices. His name was spoken with admiration across the colonies. But Arnold was also deeply resentful. He felt underappreciated. Congress had passed him over for promotions. Others received credit for his victories. His finances were ruined, his pride wounded, and his marriage into a loyalist-leaning family deepened his bitterness. By 1779, he was secretly communicating with the British, and by 1780, he was prepared to commit one of the most shocking acts of treason in American history. Arnold had been given command of West Point, a fortress so strategically vital that controlling it would allow the British to cut the colonies in half. If West Point fell, New England would be isolated. The rebellion would likely collapse. Arnold planned to surrender the fort. In exchange, he would receive money, a rank in the British Army, and restoration of his honor, at least in his own eyes. The plan was precise, quiet, devastating, and it might have succeeded if not for a series of small, human errors that history nearly erased. On the night of September 21, 1770, Arnold met Major John Andre in secret along the Hudson River. Their conversation lasted hours. They spoke in whispers, hiding behind the certainty that history was about to bend in their favor. Arnold handed Andrei maps, troop numbers, fortifications, and schedules. The fate of the revolution sat folded inside Andrei's coat. The plan was simple. Andrei would return to British lines, deliver the intelligence, and West Point would be taken without a fight. But the river was heavily patrolled. The British ship that brought Andrei could not safely wait. Against his better judgment, Andrei agreed to travel back by land, disguised in civilian clothes. That decision sealed his fate. 3 days later, near Tarrytown, New York, Andrei was stopped by 3 militiamen, John Paulding, Isaac Van Wart, and David Williams. They were not famous men. They were not trained intelligence officers. They were farmers, suspicious of anyone moving through the countryside. When Andrei gave the wrong answer to a casual question, when he claimed allegiance to the wrong side, the men searched him. Inside his boot, they found the papers. Maps, drawings, notes. Proof of treason so overwhelming that even they understood its significance. Andrei tried to bribe them. He offered gold, promises, protection. They refused. Not because they were saints, but because they were cautious, and because something in their instincts told them this man was dangerous. They turned him over to American authorities. When George Washington learned of the arrest, he was traveling to meet Arnold at West Point. Arnold learned first. In a moment of sheer terror, he fled, escaping to British lines just hours before Washington arrived. The betrayal was revealed. America was stunned. Arnold's name became synonymous with treason. But what followed was even more unsettling, because Major John Andrei was tried as a spy. Despite widespread sympathy for him, even Washington respected his character. The laws of war were unforgiving. He was sentenced to death by hanging. Andrei asked to be shot instead, a soldier's death. The request was denied. On October 2nd, 1780, he was executed. He faced death with dignity, apologizing to the guards for the inconvenience his death caused them. Even his enemies wept. Here is where the story becomes truly disturbing, because Andrei was not the only British intelligence officer operating in the colonies. He was part of a vast, efficient espionage network, one that included merchants, women, enslaved people, printers, and politicians. And that network did not die with him. It adapted. Years later, hidden letters surfaced, correspondence showing that British intelligence had penetrated the Continental Congress far deeper than anyone admitted. Several individuals suspected of collaboration were never publicly named. Why? Because exposing them would have shattered public confidence in the newborn nation. Some truths were considered too dangerous to reveal. Instead, silence was chosen. The American Revolution succeeded, but barely. Victory came not from moral purity, but from compromise, secrecy, foreign intervention, and luck. France's support tipped the balance. British exhaustion played its part. Internal divisions weakened the empire. And yet, the myth that emerged afterwards told a simpler story. Noble patriots, united, righteous, victorious. It was a necessary myth. Nations are not built on ambiguity. They are built on stories people can believe. Benedict Arnold lived the rest of his life in exile. The British never fully trusted him. The Americans never forgave him. He died bitter, his name forever stained. Major John Andrei was buried with honors by the British. Monuments were raised to him, ironically more enduring than Arnold's legacy. And George Washington carried the weight of knowing how close everything came to collapse. Today, when Americans speak of freedom, independence, and democracy, they rarely remember how fragile those ideas once were. They forget that history is not a straight line. It is a narrow bridge crossed by imperfect people over an abyss of failure. The United States was not born inevitable. It survived by inches, by accidents, by choices made in fear, anger, pride, and hope, and sometimes by the refusal of 3 ordinary men to accept a bribe on a dusty road in New York. That is the truth history almost lost, and the truth that reminds us the past was never as simple as we were taught to believe.